Welcome back, everybody, to the Electrocoaches channel. And all week long, I've been tweaking ITZ bases. You know, I got the ITZ CL2 bases here. I got the ITZ double dial bases over here. A couple bags, by the way. Been evaluating them, trying them out on my sculpted figures. I want to see how well these heavier figures run on these new bases. Well, I was on Facebook after the last video that I posted, and I had mounted on the front of these new ITZ bases. I installed the fronts for those bases. This is a sprue of these fronts. They're like a faceplate almost for your base. Your ITZ base is pretty much a rectangle, and it's flat in the front as well as in the back without those fronts, you see. So this is my my Nick Bosa figure here, my sculpted Nick Bosa figure, and I'm testing this ITZ base on it, right? Now if you look at the front right here, the base is flat. It doesn't have a face, you see, but the base is still, you still can play with the base like this. All right, so what these fronts do, like here's my other player right here. This player has a front on it. You see how it's rounded right there? Right? So yeah, this front makes the base, it helps the base to come off of blocks easier. Okay, as you play, when you're let's zoom in real quick. I'm gonna do a small simulation here by hand without turning the board on. All right, and let's do this. I'm gonna get my Philadelphia Eagle tight end Zach Ertz. Right, we're gonna put him on the field against my safety right here, number 20, Ward. Okay, move all this out of the way. See, let's put this base right here. Right. Now, as you look at the front of the base, right, as I said before, you see that the base is rounded. It has the front of the base is rounded off. And let me grab, I'm going to take Nick Bosa. We're going to put him on the table. All right. Now, you see these three figures. Okay, you see these three figures, right? The Zach Ertz figure, look at the front of his base. It's slightly rounded. That's a different front for the ITZ base. You look here at number 20, my safety, Ward. His base front has a little bit more roundness to it, okay? And the Nick Bosa figure doesn't have a front at all. All right. So now, with or without the front, the base still will work. It will still run. But at the point of attack, not having a front will cause the base to do something else. All right. And one of those things the base will do is it will stay on its block. If you're using it offensively, if you're using it defensively, it might not be able to separate from a block without that rounded front. you may get the base to push, but it won't come off. You see? So, all right, I have here my middle linebacker, Fred Warner, right here, right? His front base front is just like that of Nick Bosa's. Now, I already know what you're asking. Why don't you just put a front on these two guys like everybody else? Well, these guys are at, these two players right here, their weight is at 4.0. I digress for a moment. So if I mount a rounded front onto these two figures, it's going to take my player to 4.1 grams. It's going to be too heavy. Again, I digress. Now, let's say you're in game time. Let me see. I'm going to take this. I'm going to keep Nick Bosa, and we're going to take Fred Warner out for a moment. And I'm going to take his base, and I'm going to give it to one of my Eagle offensive linemen. All right. We'll play a little make-believe also while we're at it. Now, the Eagle offensive lineman, his base front is flat, just like Nick Bosa's base front is flat. Okay? When those two players match up at the point of attack, those two base fronts, those two flat base fronts are going to come together just like that. Nick Bosa won't be able to get off and move upfield because the two flat surfaces of the bases will be jammed. So then it'll come down to a pushing match. So it doesn't make sense for your players to just push and not be able to separate. You see? Now, depending on your strategy, you might want your bases to not have a front mounted on it, depending on your strategy. Okay? But I know for me, myself, I want my defensive end to be able to separate from a block. Okay? Now, offensively, you may want your lineman, okay, you may want your lineman to push and then separate. You see? So without the rounded front, your players may get stuck just like this and the board is running. I run the board just real quick. You see that? I wanted to just run it real quick for you. I thought, although I said I was going to just do it by hand, I was just so tempted when I saw these two figures together. You know, I'm proud of my work here, my sculpt work, the decal, you know. Let's watch them again. See how they just sat there, stuck? They can't separate. You see? Because there's no base front on either of the figures. So now, we'll move Bosa over here. We're going to take a tackle, move him out of the way, and let's bring our safety, Ward, and our tight end, Zach Ertz, together. Now you see between their bases, right? They have a rounded front. So now my tight end offensively can separate. He can increase the chances of separating from this safety at the point of attack. Okay? Let's watch this. See that? That was possible because these two rounded fronts were able to get off of each other, if you will. All right? Now I have this rounded front on my safety. My corners will be different. All right. Here is one of my corners, Richard Sherman, and my other corner here, this is a Witherspoon number 23 on this side. Now, Witherspoon's front is almost, it's very subtle. It's a very subtle front, okay? It's not as round as this safety right here, right? Not as round as my Zach Ertz tight end, all right? Richard Sherman's front is pointed, slightly pointed at the front, not rounded at all. Because see, I want my corners, I do want my corners to separate at some point. I don't want them to jam the receiver. See, I like for my corners to bump, run. These fronts that you see here give me that capability. They're not so rounded that their separation will be too quick, like that of my safety right here. See, their front is subtle, so when they come in contact with an opponent receiver, they'll stay with the receiver for a moment and then release and go. Okay, so this sprue that you're looking at right here, ITZ offers these fronts in different colors. All right, this sprue, it has different types of fronts on them. Like here, this is the a concave front. This front basically, it bends. It doesn't bow out. It goes the other way. Concave means it's dented in the front. All right. Then you have on this one, you have a slanted type of front where one side of the front is slanted while the other side is straight. One's going to the left, one's going to the right. All right. This is some green fronts I got right here. Okay. So ITZ has different colors, different styles. They also has some yellow ones as well. At any rate, these fronts, they pretty much do the same thing. Doesn't matter what the color is. All right. So before I move on and show you how to mount this front, all right, I'm going to tweak this yellow ITZ standard base here. All right. And I'm going to take, my intent is to mount this green front onto it, because I want you to see that in the camera. I want you to see the contrast. I'm going to put a green front on this yellow base. We're going to run the base and we're going to evaluate it. I'm not going to tweak the base in this video. All right. I tweaked in the last video. This video is primarily about how to mount these fronts. So I'm going to tweak this base offline, and when I'm done, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, everybody. I just got through tweaking the base that I intend to mount the rounded front onto. But before I do that, I want to talk about how to install the rounded front onto the base. Now, this base that you see before you is not the base that I was tweaking. I was tweaking a ITZ standard base, and we'll go to the game table and look at that base. All right, that's the base that we're going to put the rounded front on. This base in front of you right here is the one I'm just going to talk about where the rounded front is supposed to go. Now, all of ITZ's bases, they come with well, they don't come with them, they come separate. they come with the rounded fronts. They come separate, all right? You got different kind of fronts. And the way you mount those and where you mount those fronts is right here. All right, you see those little notches on the edge of the base. You have those notches either in the front or the back of the base. And you also have them, let's clear this out. You also have those notches right here on each corner of the base. From the front, this is the front of the base right here. All right, and then up this way is the back of the base. You have them also in the corners of the back. ITZ hasn't made any fittings for the sides of the base, because pretty much that's what this is. All the way up and down here, this is the side of the base. All right, ITZ hasn't made any type of add-on for that part of the base. But anyway, I digress for a moment. But the front of the base is where we're talking about here today, right? And again, you're gonna put your front end right here in these notches. Okay, now if you look at the piece that's on the left, that's the part that mounts onto the base. See this connector here and that connector? They fit right into here. All right, you mount them in there, and that's what will give your base a rounded configuration. All right. Sometimes that front won't fit. The connectors won't fit in these slots right here. You have to modify. Sometimes you have to modify the base in an effort to get it to fit, and I'm going to show you that in this video. But before I do that, I need to give you these preliminaries. All right, let's see here. We're going to take this picture down, and we're going to go to another one. Stand by just a moment. Let's see what we got. Going to drop this one. Now also, the front, you have to also know about, you have to be concerned about the bottom of the base as well. Now this picture is showing you the underside of the base. Now if you look at the left, the base on the left, right here, minimize that. If you look at the base on the left, you see here and here. As a matter of fact, this entire edge right here, all right, is what you want to be concerned about when you mount your front. Because see this part right here, this is the front itself, all right? That's the part that connects, that it locks in on the underside of the base. All right, so you lock it in at the top of the base here and here. Let's clear this out. I don't want our screen getting too jumbled. So you connect the front on the top of the base as well as the underside of the base. All right, and the underside of the base, as you can see on the left, you see here on the left, this is the underside right here. I have the base flipped over, all right? So you want to connect this part on the underside, and then you want to have the top of that front, which is here, right? This is the front flipped over, so you can see the back side of it. you want to connect that into these little slots right here, and that will create a lock so that the front won't fall off when the base is moving. All right, let's switch to a different picture here. Some other things I want to show you. All right, now that we've covered that, the base that I'm going to put this front on is this standard base right here. I chose this base for several reasons. One, I wanted to tweak it, and this is the picture of the base before I tweaked it. And as you can see, if you look at the prongs, you can see that there's flash on all 8 of the prongs. All right, so I wanted to tweak the base. Also, it's going to show up really good in this video when I put that green front on it. All right, along with that, it turns out this base really works well on the figure that I'm going to put it on. So let's I want to show you the figure that I intend to use. Let's close this out. Oh, and by the way, I did some modifications to it also in an effort to drop weight on this base. I cut out the center portion of the base because the figure that I want to mount on it, it pushed it over 4 grams. It came out to like 4.3 grams. Because remember, I'm using sculpted figures. I customized my figures using clay, so that's making my men a little bit heavier. All right, and it's also, by the way, the weight of my figures is also slightly reducing the performance of the base in regards to how fast it moves. But again, I digress. That's another video for a different time. So okay, we're going to drop that. Now the figure that I'm going to put this base on is this is a game day figure. This is the Freeney figure. After I sculpted it, as I said before, it came out, it was very heavy when I was finished sculpting it. So I had a hard time finding a good base, the right base for it. But this is how it looks on the base. And the base, as you can see, well, you can't see it, but the base is tweaked. All right, and you see on its left is the front that I'm going to mount. And I'm going to take this under the microscope, this base and this front. I'm going to take it to the microscope and show you what it looks like. Show you how I mount this front onto the base under the microscope. So yeah, again, we're going to take these hooks right here, hooks or connectors if you will, and we're going to seat them right in that space in there without the figure on it. We got to take the figure off in order to do it. I had tweaked in my opinion, when mounting this front in the way I'm about to show you, in my opinion, I think it's best to tweak the base first and then put the front on, because you're gonna really have to handle this base when you're tweaking it. So once you mount this front, you don't want to handle the base too much, because you could potentially separate the front from the base, because you're doing some modifications here. Okay, along with that, when you tweak this base, you need to be able to see your prongs. And once you put the front onto the base, it's going to reduce your visibility to the front prongs. It's also going to reduce your access to the front prongs, because there's a small little lip on the bottom side of the base that's going to come closer to your prongs a little bit. So again, I think it's best you tweak first, then put the rounded front on. And I'm going to show you how the base runs. Before we go to the microscope, I'm going to show you how this figure runs on this base without the front first. Then we're going to put the front on and run the base again to see if the performance of the base changed. Because another thing, while I got you here, when you tweak the base, right, you got to be careful how low you cut the prongs, because if you cut the prongs too low, that rounded front may drag on the board, and that's going to cause some problems for you. Okay, so that's why when you tweak, be careful how low you cut those front prongs. All right, you have to accommodate for the amount of clearance the front has to the board. All right, let's see. Let's go see. Let's look for something else here. Okay, let's do this. I'll bring this up. Now, this is how your figure looks. Okay, you see the Nick Bosa figure on the right. And again, that's a game day figure called the Freeney, and he's on the base that we're going to put the rounded front on. And as you can see, the front is not on the base right now, right? And the figure to the left is that's my Seahawk figure. That's my one of my tackles, and that's a Reginald Rutledge pose right there. And I used the arms from a J.C. Davis figure to create this pose. But again, that's another video. If you look at the Seahawk figure, you see his front. See how the front is rounded? That's what the front is going to look like when I put that piece onto the Nick Bosa figure. See, if you look right here, see that? That's what the base front does for you. So now, if I was to run the board right now, which of course, I'm not going to do that here, but if I ran the board right now, the Nick Bosa figure won't be able to separate. He won't be able to separate from the tackle because, again, he doesn't have a rounded front. All right. So let's close this one out. Let's take another look here. Let's get in closer. Right. Okay. Now, there are the bases up close. You see? So at the point of attack, when those two bases meet, that's if you line up your figure directly over top of an opposing lineman. Again, strategy, another video. But if you did that, or during the course of play, at the point of attack when the bases meet head up, well, the yellow base, in this case here, it'll get caught on the green base because the surface is so flat, it won't roll off. And you might not want that with some of your players. All right. Let's see if we can get a different angle here. Let's see. Let's go to this one. All right, and this is a overhead shot. Okay, Nick Bosa versus Seattle Seahawks. All right. And you see how the rounded front here. You see the difference in the look compared to that of the Nick Bosa figure. See that flat surface, again, it'll get caught. All right. So let's see. Let's go. Let's close that out. All right. So yeah, we're going to go over to the game table, and we're going to run this my Nick Bosa figure on this standard ITZ base. And also we're going to weigh it. I'm going to show you how much it weighs. All right. So let me switch sets, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back now at the game table, and we have our Nick Bosa pose here. And again, this is a game day figure called the Freeney, and we have it mounted on the ITZ standard base that we're going to put our mounted front on. Okay, so now I'm going to do a run test. We're going to watch it run, watch it perform. All right, zoom in a little bit. Let's see how it goes. All right, not a problem. Figure is a bit top heavy, and because of that, if the base jerks, it may fall down, and that's due to the prongs grabbing the board. But not to worry, the base is fine. The figure and base is fine. Let's run it again. Good movement. See, I intend to use it as defensive end, so it's going to play the right side. So I expect it to go up and turn in. Just like that, all right? And here is the front that I'm going to use on it. And while I have you here, I want to show you how it matches up against my Seahawk tackle figure. All right, gonna bring it in. Now remember, the Nick Bosa figure doesn't have his front yet. All right, I want you to watch something here. You see that? Remember how I said in the last frame, Nick Bosa couldn't separate. Why? Because he doesn't have that rounded front. All right? And by the way, if you are playing with your figures without their fronts, right, and you're worried that he may get stuck like you just saw, right, you don't necessarily have to line up like directly over top of your opponent like that. You can tip them a little bit, like so, right? Like this. You can do that. And then when the board comes on, you may have a greater chance of separating. Or you can move them over like this, like that, what have you. Whatever it takes, all right? If you're playing without a rounded front, that's a possibility. You can line up in that way if you choose to do so. You don't have to be directly over top of your opposing lineman, okay? All right, so now you saw how the base couldn't separate from the block, all right? You don't want that. So now we're going to take our 8-gram blocking sled. We're going to match them up. See how it goes. Pretty strong base. This figure and base, right? It weighs in at, let's get our scale out. They're powered up. Back it off a little bit. I'm going to put our Nick Bosa player on here. He weighs in at 3.8 grams. And then when we add our rounded front that we're going to install shortly, that puts it at 3.9 grams. So at 3.8 grams, it matched up well against this 8.1 gram blocking sled. That's a good look. That's a good look. So I believe that in game time, this figure if I use it right, if I coach it properly, this guy will make big plays in the game for me. All right? Just a little side note. Right? So we got a 3.8 gram figure, 3.9 gram figure with the front. You saw it run. We matched it up against this 8 gram blocking sled, and we matched it up against an opposing offensive lineman, right? Okay. Now, let's take our Nick Bosa figure. We're going to move him off to the side, and we're going to put everybody away for right now. I want to show you this. We have a lighter, and the tool that we're going to use to mount this front is this little dental tool here. It's like a metal toothpick. All right. So basically, what I do, back up our camera some. Right. We take the lighter and we put the heat on this tool, and while the mounted front, as you see here, is sitting on the base, we're going to touch, remember those connectors that I showed you earlier in the video, right? We're going to touch those areas of plastic, and we're going to melt that plastic into those notches that I showed you on the base. All right? It's as simple as that. And I'm going to take you over to the microscope, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. All right? Give me a moment to change sets, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we're under the microscope, and you're looking at the base that I intend to put on the Nick Bosa figure, and you're looking at the rounded front that I'm going to mount onto that base. The rounded front is the green part, and I use the green one because you can clearly see the contrast between the base and the front itself. All right. I did a little trial run, so you can see the little black marks on the fronts right here. I just touched around to see how my hands would fit under the microscope. All right. So basically what I'm going to do, remember the tool that I showed you at the game table, right? Well, I have it here. All right. And I'm going to heat this tool. This is a dental pick right here. All right. I'm going to heat this metal, and I'm going to touch right in these areas here to get that plastic to melt into those little notches at the front of the base. All right. So basically, we're going to just melt this plastic right in here to get it to conform. Right there. All right. So let me get into position, and let me heat this tool, and I'll show you momentarily. All right. Again, here's the tool. I'm not going to flick the lighter under the microscope because there's clearly not enough space for that. All right. So stand by. I'm heating my tool right now. Or you don't have to use this particular tool here. You can use any small needle-like instrument. All right, and I'm going to touch right there. I'm going to keep doing that until we get this plastic to conform. Let me heat my tool again. I'm a lot faster outside the microscope because there's not much space for my hands to work in. I'm going to touch right here. We're going to get this plastic to melt into the base. We're going to do that on both sides. Okay. And offline, I'm going to clean this up. You know, because it's a little bit off. So I'll melt it again and move it over into this space right here. But for the most part, you can see what I'm talking about. All right, that's one side done. And then I will go to the other side and do the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go offline and I'm going to finish this up. All right, I'm going to clean this up and I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you the finished job. I'll be right back. Okay, now I have the front mounted on to the figure's base. So I'm showing you the figure, which is slightly blurred in the foreground for obvious reasons, and the base and the front all put together, which you see right here. All right, all of it's right there. Okay, so I could have done a cleaner job, but the point is, you see that it's possible to melt that part onto your base. Let me slide the figure off for a moment real quick. Let you give you a full view of the base and the front. Well, from the looks of it, I'm probably slightly off. Like I could have moved this front a little more this way. Because if you look at the edges right here, I'm a little bit off. So I probably could have moved it over some. But the point is, this is how you can do the modification. You can melt the contacts on that front to get it to merge onto the base. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the game table and we're going to look at the Nick Bosa figure again on this base. We're going to run it and test it and see how much the base has changed after adding this front. So let me get back over to the game table and I'll be right back. Okay, now I got the rounded front installed on the ITZ standard base, right? Now I want to test to see if applying this front has changed the characteristic of my base. Let's back the camera up a bit. See, by adding this front, after tweaking, it could have, it could affect how the base runs. So I wanted to play defensive end. Let's see how well it moves down the board. All right, here we go. Good movement, stable movement, right? Let's run it again. Okay, it wants to run the distance. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. I can use that. Okay, not bad at all. All right, so now I'm gonna get my tackle, the same guy you saw earlier. It's my Seattle Seahawks tackle, Jermaine Ifedi, right here, number 65, right? And I want to measure. I want to see how well. I want to see if this Nick Bosa figure can separate now with this new front that it has. All right, let's see what happens. All right, he still gets jammed. All right, but hey, this is another ITZ base that's mine. So both of these bases I tweaked. So my Jermaine Ifedi figure is competitive. So he's no pushover. Let's see what we get. Let's try to get some separation. All right, he's still jammed. All right, but there's one way I can test to see how well this base can separate with this new front. What I'm going to do, let's back up real quick. I'm going to take Jermaine Ifedi's base off. All right, and I'm gonna set it over here, and I'm gonna bring in this base, this one. All right, and we're gonna match him up. Same figure, different base. Jermaine Afetti's base is over here, right? Because what I want to see, I need to see my Nick Bosa figure separate. Now, before adding that rounded front, the Nick Bosa figure wouldn't separate from anything. All right, let's see what happens here. See that? It gets away. Let's move it back a little bit. See, this base right here is a little bit weaker. It wasn't alignment. All right, I want to see how I want to see what the Nick Bosa figure does with this new base. I want to see how well it comes off. Let's run it again. You see that? That's what I want to see right there. So I know it can do. Now I know it can separate. All right. Let's go the other way. Right. Okay, good, good. It gets upfield the way it's supposed to. See, I want it to fight against an opposing blocker. I want him to play and fight against an opposing blocker, shed the block, and get upfield. So that time he got stuck. All right, but I'm pleased with that though. Now I know that when I move and I go back and I get Afetti's original base, I know that the Nick Bosa figure still struggles to separate against him. As you can see here. See, because this tackle, this my man right here. So I'm working against myself. So I gotta find a base. I use this base to measure the potential of other bases that I'm recruiting. All right. So this tackle right here, he's no slouch. So even with this new front, new base, new figure, Jermaine Afetti is saying not here today. You see? So, but all in all, you see how to install or modify a rounded front onto your ITZ base. That's what this video was about. All right. You have to, if you have a front that doesn't fit properly on the base, you can melt the connectors and have it conform into the base to have it to mount. All right. So that's all I got for now. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you find it useful. I'll be back with something else on a later date. I'm Mo. Thanks for watching.